think what I'd like to do today, Fred, is talk a little bit about the about our community and our feelings towards the dialogue that is taking place. It's been taking place for quite some time now, with regard to municipalities and fair cost of sharing and who contributes and these type of things. I want to make it very clear from the offset that this is my personal opinion, and it's not presented as an argument. It's presented for thought. I'd like people to take these things into consideration when they discuss the topic of municipality contributions and versus the rural contributions. Our community, and I speak specifically for the community of Flat Bay, we've been incorporated under the Band Council since 1972. Prior to that, it's always been a self-government is what we identify it as. It's been a self-government run community whereby people, various different people from different families, took on the responsibility of doing the type of work that was necessary to be done in the community, and that would be everything from caring for the sick to burying our dead. So there's a traditional lifestyle of self-government in the community. In 1972, we felt it was important to incorporate, for the simple reason that in order to be able to have a transparency and accountability on any of the different types of programs that we may find ourselves applying for, and these would be, of course, ongoing programs that are available to everybody else in society. It's just that we looked at opportunities whereby we could apply those programs to better the lifestyles of the people in our community. As an example, there's no sewage in our community. It's everybody have their individual septic tanks because they own enough property to be able to do that without creating any kind of an environmental consequences in the community. It's not like if houses were within 150 or 200 feet apart. People live on 2-3 acres of land, and therefore there's lots of soil to observe what's coming from a septic system. So therefore there's no immediate danger based on the small population and the large area that they're dispersed that would raise any concerns at this particular point in time. So storage is not something we had to look at. However, having water in the homes of every household is very important, and was taken as a very serious matter in the early 70s. So what happened was that under these so-called Canada Works programs, whereby the federal government of Canada had earmarked money to create employment opportunities for people who live mostly in areas of seasonal work, provided all communities and all organizations who were interested and took the initiative to apply for these programs to become beneficiaries of the programs. We did likewise here in Flat Bay. However, what we did is we did strategic planning. When we looked at applying for any of those programs, we looked at it in the sense of what does our community need. There's lots of things that you could apply for, and there's lots of things that were applied for. But we looked at the infrastructure of our community. So water, drinkable water to the homes of everybody in the community came from these work programs. As the chief at the time, I applied for the ongoing programs, and then we used them to put water in the homes of the people. The same thing with this beautiful facility that you see here now, which is the Band Council office. That was built under Make Work programs. And a lot of the work in the community, such as a community center, which not only acted as a community center for adults to be able to socialize and to generate revenue to take care of the upkeep of that center, and also for the upkeep of our Catholic Church, the St. Anne's Church, but also at the time it was built adjacent to the school, whereby it gave our young students an opportunity to have an introduction to the gymnasium programs before they were transported out of our community to the St. George's school system. It was very important having these type of programs brought to the community, whereby young people would have at least some knowledge, some understanding, and some participation in gymnasium activities. So we strategically looked at how we could utilize whatever programs were out there made available to the general public, but we utilized them for the development of the infrastructure in our community, and that's why we always pride ourselves, and we continue to tell others that we are a self-governing community. With regard to burden on municipalities, let's face it, the services that we get from municipalities is we get our roads cleared in the wintertime, like everybody else on the island of Newfoundland do, and we get a school bus service. Outside of that, that is the service that comes to this rural community. There's nothing else that comes here. We don't get an annual grant from municipal affairs. We don't have fire service. And because we don't have a fire service, because we don't have access to a fire truck or firefighters, it means that people in this community pay much, much more for their personal life insurance or house insurance than anybody living in municipalities or cities. So our cost is much greater. The other thing that is sometimes not considered is the cost of living. It costs probably triple the amount to live in Flat Bay than it do to live in the town of Stephenville, because everything we need has to be bought in Stephenville. If I would argue that we are a bigger contributor to the town of Stephenville than the residents in the town of Stephenville itself. And I'll give a number of examples. If anybody in this community buys a car, the life expectancy of our vehicle is probably about 4 years because of the accumulation of miles we're going to put onto it. Where if you buy a car in Stephenville, you may get 10 to 12 years out of it because you don't have to use it that much. You're going 2 kilometers to go to the store, we're going 50 to go to the store. What we invest in the upkeep of that vehicle, we're going to have far more repairs, we're going to use more tires, we use more gas, we're going to need more oil changes because we're accumulating more mileage on our vehicles than anybody who live in the immediate areas of where the service is provided. So we are the contributors to the economy. If you look at it on the basis of per capita of people, and if you look at who supports some of the major suppliers with regard to recreation vehicles in the dealerships throughout the areas outside of the rural communities or outside of Flat Bay, that's where I'm making the argument for, there's far more ATVs, there's far more snowmobiles, there's far more outboard motors bought in these small outlying communities than there are bought by the people who live in the immediate area of Stephenville itself. And I'm not saying this to chastise people because we understand that they have no need for it. Where our lifestyle and our employment opportunities are derived mostly from this type of involvement. The other thing that is not considered is that where in the larger centers, what you have is you have a circulation of the same money. Not so much so in Flat Bay. What we have is we have new money. We contribute brand new money to the economy because our people are fishermen, and that's brand new money that is generated from the fisheries. Many of our people are loggers. They go away from the community. A lot of them work in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. That revenue is generated from the reforestation products. It's brought back into the community. It goes into the economy of Stephenville. So we're bringing new money to the economy, not old money. If municipal affairs gives Marble Mountain $1 million, and Marble Mountain hires a group of people to do some infrastructure development or some expansion, that's old money. That's money that's already in our system. However, it's very important to make this point, that when 15 or 20 of our people from our community go to work in the outfitting industry as guides, they're bringing brand new money from all over the world that people are spending in the tourism industry. When our people go to Nova Scotia and they're involved in silver culture, the money that they bring back is brand new money. It's not money circulating within from government money that is put into the industry. I would say that, and I haven't done an accurate assessment of that, but I would say that since we joined Confederation in 1949, if the community of Flat Bay has received $500,000 from provincial government money, that would be somewhat of an exaggeration, because we don't receive any kind of municipal funding. The services that we have, we pay for. You know, we have water in every house in Flat Bay. People pay for that on a monthly basis. You know, the band council collects that money. We have a garbage collection. People pay for that. Not only do they pay for that garbage collection, but in the past years, we had to contribute to the town of St. George's a large portion of that money in order to have access to their dump site. So we're buying our service. So we're not, it's not like if we're dependent on municipalities or on the provincial government. We are paying our way as we go. And these are the kind of discussions that you know, municipality, Newfoundland and Labrador, and also the provincial government should be having in our communities. You know, we need that kind of dialogue. We need to educate those people with regard to the kind of sacrifices that are made by people that live in these particular areas. Let's go one step further. You know, let's look at the food chain, the food outlets in the Stephenville area. You know, if somebody got a doctor's appointment or somebody has to go to the hospital in Stephenville, and when they go in, if they're told that there's a 5-hour wait, they can go home and have a lunch. If you live in Flat Bay and you go to Stephenville and you're told there's a 5-hour wait, you have to send somebody downtown to buy something for you, or you go downtown and have your supper. So who's contributing to the restaurants and the fast food takeouts and that in Stephenville? It's not the people in Stephenville themselves. I'm not suggesting that they don't buy there, but I am suggesting that if you look at things from a proper perspective, why would they buy there when they can go home and get a meal for half what it's going to cost them in that restaurant? So I'm making the argument that we are the biggest contributors when it comes to the economy. You know, everything from buying cars to buying ATVs to buying snowmobiles to buying outboard motors. You know, to buying gas, to buying restaurant food, entertainment. I know if in entertainment, I know it's not a demand that we have. It's entirely up to us. But you don't expect to grow up in Flat Bay and raise a family without taking them at least to a movie once in a while. If you live in Stephenville and you go to a movie, what's it going to cost you? It's going to cost you the fare of getting in and probably $2 for your car, depending where you live if you're on the outskirts of Stephenville. If you live in Flat Bay to take your family to a movie, it's probably going to cost you $100 because you have to buy gas, and then you're going to go out early enough that your kids are going to want a treat because now they see the McDonald's and you know and every other restaurant that is out there. So they're going to want a treat. So you give them that treat, and then you of course you go to the movie. So our cost of living is nowhere at all. There's going to be a comparison made by what it costs us to live compared to people who live in the town of Stephenville itself. So this is a very I think a very important dialogue that has to take place with regard to imposing taxes on areas that don't utilize or don't get any type of services.
We recently had a discussion with Craig Pollard on community radio, and he's with what is it, Union of Newfoundland Municipalities, is it called now? Or? Yeah. And one of the topics of discussion was that actually in all of Canada, Newfoundland is unique in that it doesn't have a municipal structure of counties and different layers of government. So what's probably happening now is I don't know, would you call it a modernization of the basic structure? So the question coming up, so the evolution has been different than in other places where a county would provide all kinds of services throughout the district.
Right.
So I think what's happened, what you're describing, I know nothing about it really, but what you're describing is that in Newfoundland, a rather unique style of governance has evolved, and so therefore it's now time to not just adopt what Ontario would do because they have a different structure, but rather it's to look at the independence of the small communities, the outports that have established themselves.
That's exactly the argument that I'm making. That's the kind of discussions that need to take place, because without these kind of discussions, what's going to happen is that the policymakers are going to congregate somewhere, you know, in a hotel room down in St. John's, and they're going to decide based on their basic needs and based financial needs of their towns. They're going to look at what it costs to run their town, and they're going to look at how can they generate extra revenue without imposing more taxes on their residents in that particular community. And I understand that. But what I'm saying is that before you sit down and you make policies that suggest that, oh, well, maybe the people in Stephenville, in Flat Bay, is getting a free ride too long, maybe they should start paying property taxes, and they should be, they should be included under this municipal scheme. Let's have the dialogue. Is what are the people in Flat Bay getting from municipality Newfoundland and Labrador? What kind of drain are we on municipal affairs? What are the benefits of people in Flat Bay having to pay property tax for a service that we never ever received and is very far reaching? Are they going to offer us the services of a fire truck if there's nothing else taking place in their jurisdiction? That will become secondary. If there's two fires, if there's one, we live adjacent to St. George's, probably, I don't know, 25 miles by highway. If there's a fire in St. George's and a fire in Flat Bay, where are we expected the fire truck to go? We know where the fire truck has to go. It has to go to the fire in St. George's. It doesn't necessarily have to come to Flat Bay. So by offering us an olive branch of this is what could be available to you, won't be good enough to impose taxes on our people. We can't live by what could be available to you. We have to live within what is available to us. So that's the kind of discussions and the kind of arguments that communities like Flat Bay have to make. And like I said earlier in the beginning, and I repeat it again, I'm not making an argument on behalf of any of the rest of the communities. I'm sure that they're quite capable, and I'm sure that there are some similarities, but I'm sure that there may be some differences too. But what I am doing is I'm making an argument on behalf of our community, who have traditionally, from the time of its creation, whenever that was, and we're looking at probably back sometime to the 1600s, from the creation of this community until the present day, we have been self-governing, and we have got along quite well with that system, and we've provided to people what they were ready for when they were ready for it, not impose something on people that they weren't ready for. I'm not suggesting that there'll never be a municipality in Flat Bay. I'm not suggesting that we'll never be amalgamated with another town. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying, at this point in time in our history and in deliverance of the programs and services that we supply to our people, and our demands on municipal affairs, which is practically very minimum to nil, we feel that it would be imposing for any municipality to talk about people in Flat Bay having to pay property taxes, unless they can offer us something better than a possibility of these services.
I remember talking years ago, talking to Wilf Cutler, who was the town clerk, I guess, of Ramia, and Ramia, as every community did, rural community connected with the fishery, faced hard times back in the early 90s, and he said one of the worst things that had happened to the island, his community, was that the provincial government had kind of led them, not exactly tricked them, but brought them to invest in a huge amount of, I guess, sewage and water supplies out to kind of like the remoter areas of the community. And it was like a huge debt, and they couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So, but what it is almost is taking a model of an urban model and projecting that model on a rural community. So what would be the benefits of not having a septic system but having a really expensive tied in together sewage plant? It doesn't make sense really to me.
And that's some of the fears that we have. Right now what we have in the community of Flat Bay is we have each individual owns a decent piece of property. Something that if they wanted to put a small garden on, they could put a small garden. If they wanted to put an extension to their garage, or they want to do something, you have that particular opportunity because you have that type of land. If we find ourselves in a situation where property taxes are going to be imposed on people, what you're going to find is that people are not going to be able to afford to pay property taxes on these larger areas of land. So what's going to happen is they're going to sell off that land. There's no question about that. They're going to sell off that land. Usually what happens is now, if you look at some of the larger centers in the province, is that the cost of land has become so high that it costs as much or even half of what it's going to cost you to build your house. So there could be a land grab in little communities like Flat Bay, whereby people will start coming in. And we're not suggesting that we wouldn't welcome an increase in our population, but the thing about it is that we need to do planning if that's what's going to happen. But under imposing of property taxes on people, you may force that in-migration. And then what will happen is that the land that is now sustainable to support the septic tank system will no longer be there. Because you can put a house on an acre of land and put in a septic system, at least I've been told, I'm no expert, but I've been told, and you don't have to worry about any environmental problems, especially when you get your tank pumped, every year or at least every 2 years, But as you build houses closer and closer and closer together, and you start development, that opportunity is gone. It's no longer there. So now what you need to do is you need to look at a more upgrade system, which is a municipal septic system. And once you get into that, now you're bringing expenses onto yourself and onto your community that you no longer need. Plus the fact that there is a certain enjoyment by people who've experienced the kind of lifestyle that we have in these rural communities, and that's why you can't get people to leave the places like Ramia and Grey River and Burjo. And there's people that will hang on to the last minute because they enjoy that lifestyle. It's something that they've done, they've been born into, and it's there for generations. And the same thing here in the community of Flat Bay, And one comparison I'd like to draw with regard to people not understanding our lifestyle. If there's not a passion, and if there's not a desire for freedom and openness in that, why do people leave their $500,000 homes and go out in the country and build cabins where they can escape for a weekend? What people are escaping to is the way we live. Why would we want to give that up? And have hardship imposed on our people, force them into selling off traditional property that have been in families for hundreds of years, and property that they feel very comfortable on. If they want to go out and have a garden, they have a garden. If they don't, well, that's their desire, that's their wishes. So there's room for dialogue, there's room for discussions, and I think before something is imposed onto us, we need to be brought into that discussion. And we haven't seen opportunity for it. We know the discussions is taking place because we've heard it. But nobody has come and sit down in our community and talked to us. And like I said, having a meeting of only people who are involved in municipalities doesn't address the concerns of the people that they are trying to impose their well-being or the betterment of their areas on.